We read at the end of the parsha, the Torah tells us, "Vayofa abotzeik ashotzi Mitzrayim ugos matzos ki lochometz." They had baked the dough into wafer cakes. It did not become leavened, ki gorshu Mitzrayim, because they were driven out of Egypt. V'lo yochlis mameach gam tzedel osul, and they couldn't delay, and they did not prepare any provisions for the way. So Rashi over here cites Chazal, gam tzedel osul lehem lederech. They had no provisions to go into the desert. Magid shvochen shel Yisrael. The Torah is informing us about the praiseworthiness of Klal Yisrael. Shlo omru hech neitzei lamidbo b'lo tzeido. How could we go into the desert without any provisions? El lehaminu v'holchu. They had belief, and they went. Hushem fush b'kabolo, and this is what is explicit in the Navi. Zocharti lo chesed hurayich avas klusayich. Hashem says, always remember the kindness of youth. Avas klusayich lechtech achre b'mid b'eretz lo zerua, that you followed me into an unplanted desert with not knowing exactly how could you survive. Humanly, it's not possible to survive. But because they had emunah, therefore they went without any hesitation. They didn't ask questions. How is it going to work out? HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take care of us. So this was the demonstration of their emunah. We find that 4/5 of Klal Yisrael left Egypt. A fifth left Egypt, 4/5 perished during Choshech. Now, why did they die? Because they didn't want to leave Egypt. Why did they want to leave Egypt? Because they did not have this level of emunah that who will provide for us. The fifth that left, the Chamushim Olu Yisrael Mitzrayim, the fifth that left, they had this emunah. Now, if they would have prepared provisions, what would have been? This setting wouldn't have, this opportunity of demonstrating one's emunah wouldn't have been applicable. They did not provide provisions. So I had mentioned in the past, name of Moshe Feinstein, Zechat Tzadok Levrocha, that if the Jews were aware on Rosh Chodesh Nisan that they're leaving on the 15th, why did they provide provisions? That was the question he asked. So he had said that a person in life can only be disappointed so many times. We find that during the 10 months of the Makos, Paro says, I will send you out. So could you imagine being in Egypt 210 years, and they hear they're leaving, they're immediately emotionally charged, they're ready to go. Then Paro says, the plague passes, I'm not letting you go. Serious disappointment. Hopefully, he'll let us go next time. It repeats itself a number of times. Each time they're disappointed. Because of this level of disappointment, they conclude within their minds and their emotion, until we're ready, we're not even going to allow ourselves even to consider going. As a result of that, even though they were told they would leave, they said, when we see, then we will prepare at that moment. Suddenly, they were driven out. So because of the lack of emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's why matzah came about. The matzah was a result, a consequence of the lack of emunah, lack of belief. Because if they would have had the belief, they would have prepared. It wouldn't have suddenly come about and therefore didn't have time to become leavened. So what does the matzah, what does it symbolize? It symbolizes that regardless of how we process something, that it seems to be hopeless and impossible to happen, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you something, there's no such thing as hopeless or impossible. It will happen. That's the symbolism of the matzah. But factually, we failed. We should have had the emunah. But now we have the matzah to teach us that's what it symbolizes. But factually, because of this failing, we put in a situation, there were no provisions to go into the desert. Despite that, once we learned that lesson well from the matzah, and that's what the symbolism is, what did they do? They went out to the desert. So what created the opportunity? That I always remember the chesed nurayich, the chesed of your youth. It's only because we had the lack of faith. So as a result of the failing, we rose to the occasion and we succeeded at the ultimate level.